Because you got that whole empty cabin. You know what I'm saying? Kel's got a canvas now. He working on it. By the time it's all, I'm still my son is tagging up.
Good afternoon, all. Welcome to another episode of Barbershop Convo Series. Today I'll be your moderator, and also co-host. My name is Sabrina Celestin. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, but also residing in Queens. A little bit about myself. I am an educator, financial planner, as well as a health and wellness advocate. I'm just so extremely happy to be part of this wonderful series, which is part 6 of our financial literacy series. For those of you who have been diligent in following us, I just wanted to thank our host as well, Nicole, who is also the brainchild of this wonderful series, and I'm going to pass it along. Today we have like a very interesting piece where we're going to talk about the basics of investing. We're going to go over some key terms to get our audience familiarized with it so that we can better educate and equip our community regarding financial literacy. I'm co-hosting this event with Marvin Bonhomme, which happens to be my cousin. I'm okay to say that, right? Yes. Which happens to be my cousin. I've been waiting for years to be able to work with this incredible individual. And I know that you guys are in for a great treat with this conversation. So I'm going to pass it along to you. Give us an introduction, where you're coming from, your background.
My name is Marvin, financial professional, 9 years at J.P. Morgan, last year at Morgan Stanley. I'm actually from this neighborhood. I went to B.A.C.E. Elementary School, which is down the block, so I'm very excited to be here and have this conversation. I think this is a very important conversation for us to have because, financial literacy, financial understanding, financial planning is all key. And then, I don't want to have this as, a financial session where I'm trying to be like, your exact financial planner, but I want to also have a conversation because there's a lot of emotions when it comes to finances, and that's the biggest thing that hinders us. I think there's a lot of things to know about finances that we don't know sometimes, but it's more so about having emotions to make the best financial decisions. So I'm very excited to have this conversation. Nicole, thank you for inviting us. Let's get started.
Definitely. So I'm going to, with that introduction, because we are talking about the basics of investing, I'm going to kind of like go off script a little bit, only because I feel like we need to understand terms and definitions, right? So what exactly is investing in your words?
My opinion, investing is making your money grow, using your money to make financial choices and allowing your money to grow. But there's a lot of factors we have to consider with investing. A lot of times, and I'm excited about the conversation, a lot of times we just only consider investing is like putting our money in the stock market, putting our money in a savings account to kind of let it grow. But you also have to consider other factors as well. There's 2 things that are currently killing a lot of people's finances these days. Is inflation as well as interest as far as what we're paying on the debt that we carry. So I tell everyone, I want to start off with this parable of my personal opinion. Even as a financial professional, sometimes the emotions that we carry with our financial decisions can hold us back. Let me give you an example. I had $50,000 in a high yield savings account, right? So, you feel good, like, oh, you see a big number, $50,000. That high yield savings account was giving me 4.5% interest. I was making $190 in interest for my money to grow. I also, had some things happen. I was carrying credit card debt, $27,000 of credit card debt. So my example, I told you I had $50,000 in an account, it would give me $170,000 more. My $27,000 of credit card debt was costing me $950 a month, growing interest. So you got to think about it. Double the money in savings was only giving me $175, but I was being charged $950 $950 to carry a $27,000 credit card debt. So I tell you to say, sometimes you have money to invest, but if you're carrying debt and have those kind of interest, those are eating your money, as well as inflation. The reason why I bring up inflation, we all say, like, when I was younger, $1 could get you 2 bags of chips, a soda, and everything. Now that dollar, that 1 bag of chips costs $1. That's inflation. That's the cost of what your money's worth now. So I always tell people just to invest in. You want to have each dollar working, and you want to have the dollar working so that you don't have to always work for that dollar to come in. So investing is just making the right decision to make your money grow, but you got to consider all factors when you invest.
So when you're considering the factors for investing, how does that relate to savings? Like, how do you differentiate? And when is it the time to be able to do the investing?
So that's interesting. A lot of times, we listen to the professionals like Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey, and we hear these things, and they never say anything that's particularly like mind-breaking. It's the emotional factor of it. I always tell people it's a good thing to save, but if you have a plan where you're saving, $100 a week, $200 a week, but then you're carrying credit card debt and you're only paying the minimum payment, it's like you're serving two masters and the credit card debt is winning. So if you're putting $1,000 in savings, $2,000 in savings, but you have more than that in credit card debt, you're actually going backwards because your savings is never going to grow as fast as your credit card debt. So I think the number one thing I tell people who are looking to invest is you got to make sure your debts are in order, because debt is the biggest thing that's killing us and preventing us to grow. The only time debt is a good thing is when you're using debt to leverage to buy real estate, to buy an asset, producing, a cash producing asset. A lot of times we use debt just to and I was guilty of it in the past, so it's not a judgment thing. You know what? I don't have money for this thing that I want to buy, so I'm gonna put it on my credit card. But then we don't pay it when the credit card is over, we pay the minimum payment. And they want you to pay the minimum payment because another thing I mentioned is the years and the interest. So that $27,000 in debt. And the credit card companies have to be honest with you. If you look at the statement, it says if you pay this the minimum payment on this debt, it's going to take you 28 years to pay this off, which is insane. So I always tell people savings is good, but you want to make sure that if you can put $1,000 away as your emergency fund for something to happen, and then concentrate on your debt. And once your debt is completely down, then you want to start investing.
And I want to add to that, which is why education is key, and which is why I'm so grateful that we are having this conversation. Because there's a lot of terms that we're going to throw around that people may not have been aware of. This is how the financial industry works. And something that you said, with the Dave Ramseys and the Susie Gormans, if you're following them, what you're saying in terms of with the debt to ratio, people need to understand the rule of 72, right? To understand interest rate, because you had mentioned that with investing. You talked about your interest rate being 4 point something, and it was only yielding you about
less than $200.
Less than $200 a month. And so how that worked against you with the rule of 72, right?
Yeah.
Because you weren't actually, and what the rule of 72 is basically a formula that was, I think it was Albert Einstein that came up with a formula where they took the interest and they divided it by 72 to tell you exactly how many years it would take for your money to grow. So at 4 point something that you're getting and you're dividing that by 72, how many years would it take for you to even see what you put in? So at $1,000 or even $50,000, that's a big number. How many of us can say that we have $50,000 just, available to us like that? So how many years would it take for that $50,000 to grow for you to see, a return on investment? So whereas it worked to your detriment because you carried $27,000 in credit card debt, right? Where your bank was only giving you 4% of interest rate, your credit card debt is charging you 18.
No, not even 18. So if you find a credit card today that's giving you 18, that's a great credit card. These credit card companies are starting from 22 up until 29%, which technically is it should be illegal for them to do that, but you know what? Lobbying, the credit card companies lobbying with the government, and they're allowed to charge these outrageous interest rates. it's borderline predatory lending, but at the same time, because credit card companies have billions, trillions of dollars, they lobby and they make it legal. But if a normal person went and tried to lend somebody money and said, I'm going to charge you 25% interest as a regular person, they're going to call you a criminal. But these financial institutions like the credit card company are allowed to do it.
And then so if you take that interest rate and you divide it by 72, look at how it works for the credit card company, because how much are they accumulating, right, from the interest that you're paying? How much are they accumulating? So they're increasing while you're decreasing in a sense you're losing out because of carrying the credit card debt.
And that's why I mentioned the inflation component of it, right? Inflation right now is between 6 and 7%, which means that $1 a year ago could buy less than $1 a year ago versus $1 today is 6 to 7% less effective today, right? But so I told you a high yield savings account. So a high yield savings account just means that it gives you more interest than the average. Like the average bank savings account gives you a fraction of a percent, so like less than 1%, 0.3, 0.4. A high yield savings account is giving you up to 4. I think the highest yield out there right now is like 6%. Inflation 6 to 7%, which means that even the higher yield savings account, which some places aren't going to give you that interest, the dollar's losing its value faster than that. So, and then on top of that, the bank gets to turn around and charge way more than that to lend out money. So if you can save, I honor you if you can save, but I only advise going vigorously in saving if you're carrying no debt. The only debt, there's 3 debts that you should be able to carry comfortably. There's a debt for your home, a debt for your car, and student loan debt, right? Because all of those debts were either in the pursuit of your career or an asset, for lack of a better word, your home or your car. But even in the vehicle, you shouldn't have a vehicle for more than 4 to 5 years finance. And I think another, I don't want to say crime, but another slick thing they do in finance is they allow you to now finance cars 7 to 8 years, which is insane because they get to charge you a boatload of interest, and then you shouldn't finance a car. Susie Orman will tell you more than 3 years, but the average person can't pay off a car in 3 years. 4 to 5 is more of a safe number. If you have to go to 6 and beyond, you can't afford that car.
So which segues into what you just said, defining the word asset. What is an asset?
Right. So an asset is something that's going to appreciate in value and then grow, and it's something that's on the positive side versus a liability. An asset, sometimes an asset can produce income for you, bring cash in, or it's just going to appreciate. If the item that you own won't appreciate in value or bring money into you, then it's a liability.
So what would you consider an asset that's bringing in money for you?
So for instance, if you have something for instance, your home, there's a general rule of thought. Is your home really an asset or not? I say that in the long term, your home is an asset because it's going to appreciate in value. Now, obviously, anybody who's a homeowner knows things break in your home that cost money besides the debt that you're trying to put on. Now, a rental property would be considered an asset, right? Because that property, you're not living in it, but it's generating income. So that's what I would consider an asset. Anything that's giving you income, anything that you can appreciate in value.
So then, in terms of that, let's just give like a generalization of what people would actually invest in. So we talked about a home as being an asset, something that you can invest in, but like let's break down key terminology. People are interested in stocks, they're interested in bonds. So let's break that down in terms of what you can actually invest in.
So there's many investment vehicles that people can invest in. A stock. What is a stock? We always say stock, the upside. Stock is basically a certificate that purchase ownership to a company, right? So there's all these big companies, Amazon, Microsoft, Walmart, they issue out stock ownership. Stock ownership is just ownership into the company. Now, obviously, it takes a large quantity of stocks for you to be considered an owner. But the the reason why a stock is an asset is because you can make money in stock in two ways. You can make money from stock from appreciation, so you buy a stock at $5, tomorrow it can go to $10, $15, and then now that asset now doubles or triples in its worth, so you gain money when you sell it. But also stocks also provide something called dividends. Not all stocks provide dividends, some stocks provide dividends not. Dividends is basically a cash payment back from the company. When they make profits, they dish out the dividends to the stockholders. And some stocks versus other high dividends or not. So there's two things you gotta consider when investing for a stock. Either if it's a growth stock is a stock that's known over a period of time that the value of the business will grow more than goes down. And dividend stocks, let's say like certain companies have a policy to make sure that when they have profits, after they pay all their employees and the executives, in excess, they pay out a dividend to the stockholders.
And so that's one aspect. But then now we move into something called mutual funds. So what would you define a mutual fund as?
So the mutual fund, right, and also there's an index fund, there's mutual fund, there's an exchange traded fund, right? The mutual fund is a basket of different investments, different asset stocks that's put together so that you can have exposure to a large portion of different investments all in one place, right? So I'm not a hugest fan of mutual funds versus the other ones, and I'll tell you why. A mutual fund, right? That stereotypical movies you see about Wall Street and the fat cats and stuff like that, those guys who are making millions and stuff like that are usually the mutual fund managers, right? Because they charge a higher interest rate to perform this balancing of your investment and accumulating of assets. And they change the investments that they invest in, sometimes quarterly, sometimes semi-annually, and they charge an interest rate for it. Now, the reason why people invest in mutual funds, right? These are experts whose job is to continue to grow and having them exposures all day. The reason why I'm not that big fan of mutual funds is mutual funds eat up a lot of your growth because they have to pay these people. An index fund will have the similar exposure tied to a particular index, right? So you can have, the S&P 500, which is one index, a NASDAQ index fund. These funds are giving you the exposure to all of the companies within these index, and they're touched less, so they charge you less management fees, and that is the best way to have your money grow without paying fees. That fees and interest rates, right, are synonymous. You got to watch those two things because those are the fees of your growth, right? Whether it be fees being charged by money managers or interest being charged by credit card companies, those are both things that eat away from your growth of money. So you got to watch fees and then interest rates as well.
So just to piggyback, so the mutual fund is actual stocks, right? A portfolio of stocks that is being managed by a management firm.
Yes.
Are we allowed to say names like Danvers and Bello? Those are some of the people that maybe the audience may be familiar with. We've seen commercials about them, and these people actually, their job is to watch the growth of the stock, right? For pretty much 24 hours a day. But if they're doing that, obviously they're going to get a cut. They get a sizable cut, which, like you just said, eats away a lot of what it is that you could be earning, right? Which is why I like that you said that you're a fan of the index. And I think one of the sessions that we're going to have later on in the future is to discuss that is how you get involved in getting into the index, right? And what exactly is it, and how you see it as a safer vehicle, right, in comparison to a mutual fund, right?
And don't get it. I'm not bashing mutual funds. I just feel like you have to consider, especially when you don't have, I'm speaking to more people from my community who may not have a whole bunch of money to invest. So you kind of have to watch everywhere you can save money, right? A lot of times people think in order to start investing, I need to have a whole bunch of money. No, you got to start investing what's considered accessible for yourself and then grow from there. And that's why I started off the conversation with the credit card debt versus the savings, right? Because we've been always taught save money, from our communities, I'm from Caribbean background, growing up always taught to save money. But then you never really taught, okay, investing, and then you're also not taught really how to use credit cards.
Right.
I think a lot of times, especially, which was another predatory practice, especially when I was in college in the 90s. I know I'm dating myself. But as soon as you got on campus, they would throw credit cards in your face.
Yeah.
No one taught you how to use it. You just thought to yourself, wow, so they're going to give me, at the time, they used stuff for $500, $1,000. I could buy anything I want, and then I just pay it back when I get a chance. And a lot of times that monkey on our back is the debt that we're carrying. And he doesn't leave us enough cash to invest. So that's why I bring it back to like making sure your debt is in order, because you want to be able to have your dollars go as much as you can. Pay your bills, pay off your debt, and then you can invest with that amount. But you want to, as you grow, realize that, I want to be able to have my money working as much as possible. And that's why I say index fund versus mutual funds. Because mutual funds do have a history of growing a lot. But then what eats some of your growth is your index fund.
Right. Another thing that I love how you said, in terms of investing, knowing that you're not carrying debt. But a lot of people are not, don't even take into consideration if you have an employer, right, in terms of investing, we can even go into 401k as well. And that's an investing vehicle that you have that has some pros and some cons, right? Which is why, like, I'm glad that you said that. We're not here to dispense financial advice to anybody, so I want to like preface that as well as a caveat, that we're not here to dispense you and tell you what you can invest in. We're not, that's why you need to sit with a licensed financial planner that you vet it out, that you trust, that you have a great relationship with, that can navigate you through your financial life journey. But something as simple as, even if you were to carry debt, right? But if your job offers a 401k, if you put $50 towards your debt, and maybe potentially $50 towards your 401k, where the company has the potential of matching whatever you're putting in, and you're willing to look at it as a long-term investment, for as long as you're there with the company, and to understand that it has certain parameters as well. It's money that's accessible to you, but with the understanding that you cannot touch it until you reach a certain age. But it's money, it's future money and future investment that you're putting towards potentially your retirement as a vehicle of saving. So even if we can't think on a grander scale of what you can do, like not everybody has $50,000 that they can go put somewhere, but you most definitely can put $50 or $100 away, because for those people that are investing in Starbucks, drinking Starbucks coffee, which you can buy shares, right? Because I feel this is how I see it. If I'm going to support a company, and if I believe in a company, now I just use Starbucks as an example, not that I have an affiliation with them, but if I'm using certain companies, it would behoove me, right, to like figure out how to invest in that so that I can see a return on investment, which is probably why an index would be a good thing, or even if we were talking about mutual funds, that you're diversifying yourself. But if you can start small, like I just want people to see that you don't have to have like a great deal of money to start an investment process, or even to start saving. Something as small as $50 to $100 a month, because you blow that easily on a cup of coffee. If you're doing that $8 per day on a cup of coffee, that adds up. That's more than $50 a week. So imagine $200. Most people are spending that on lunches, dinners, movies. So you can start really rethinking about where your money is going, and is it bringing me a return? Like if you're spending it on coffee, entertainment, it's not bringing you a return. But if you're putting it into something as index, or maybe stocks, or maybe mutual funds, if you're willing to stick it out for a period of time, you will see a return on your investment. So I'm glad you.
And let me add this, like what Sabrina said, I'm not here giving you financial advice. I'm not sitting here in the capacity of financial planner. I'm kind of having a conversation as financial therapy, right? Because if you ever been to therapy, the therapist doesn't tell you you're right or you're wrong. The therapist tells you how do you feel about it. It prepares you for you at the end of the day to make that final decision. I think a lot of times when you even sit with financial planners, right? Let me tell you, I've been in the financial industry, roughly under 20 years, almost 20 years, even though I look young, almost 20 years. But I tell you this, every day there's a new financial instrument being created. Yeah. So I can't sit there and tell you I know every financial instrument because when I go to work on Monday, there's going to be something new that they've been working on for this. And the thing about it is, except us in our community, we're not going to get to learn every single thing. You got to have a financial plan and financial understanding that works for you particularly. And the reason why credit card debt is a big thing that I keep bringing up is I think no one teaches us the proper use of credit card debt. No one teaches us how impactful it is to us, how having a proper credit score, how much money we can save. Sometimes you see people, they joke, my credit is screwed up, and they laugh about it like it's a joke, like, oh, well, I don't got it, I'm not going to pay it, stuff like that. That carries with you, and that prevents you from really being able to achieve a lot of things that you want to do. Even myself, it's just like, even when you're making a good income, it's cool, but if you're carrying that credit card debt on you, it's like this roommate that lives with you that don't pay no rent, don't help out for nothing, but eats all your food up. So I want you to think about credit card debt. Credit cards should be used in case of emergency. Another thing that people will fool you about is, oh, I use my credit card because I get points. The points that they're giving you is not really changing the game. Like, even sometimes they get cash back. They'll give you cash back. They're giving you percentages knowing that the amount of interest they're going to charge you if they're not charging up. I can give you back $5, $10 when I know I'm charging you $500, $700 a month, but the balance is not going down.
So that's something to like really consider. Thought like I love that concept. It's like having a roommate who is living free and
run the AC, all your electric and high, and they just smiling at you.
And that's what credit card debt is. And if we start looking at it from that standpoint, then maybe then we start having a different conversation about money and the importance of, saving and the importance. And I love what you said about having at least $1,000 worth of savings, right? Because you don't know when an emergency is going to take place. And if you can't save it, this is where I would say a credit card comes into play for emergency cases, right?
And even that concept of $1,000, right? That's been something going around for a long time to save $1,000. And that first round number of $1,000, right, is because, believe it or not, you can make six figures, you can make less than 6 figures. A lot of Americans live with check to check, right? So paycheck to paycheck. $1,000 is that first number where it's just like, if you're able to make your finances work and you can save $1,000 and not touch that $1,000, okay, so you found certain ways to cut things or found certain ways to put that money away. Obviously, you want to go more than $1,000, but that's that first number. That's like, you know what? I have the financial discipline enough to put $1,000 in. I want to continue to grow. I don't force people to stress people enough to like save $1,000 because, like I said, the interest rate and inflation is what you want to consider, right? So the reason why inflation 67%, which means your dollar in 2023. So $1 in 2023 takes $1.07 in 2024 to buy the same thing. If you're saving, right? If you save $1 and that dollar you put your savings is now 104, it's sort of like, okay, you have 104 because you made 4 cents from that dollar. So everything costs 107. So that money you save can't even buy what things cost today, right? So a good the S&P 500 is an index made of the top 500 companies in the U.S., right? And it says traditionally the S&P grows 10% each year, and that's a good number. So you got to think the S&P grows 10% each year. That's considered a good number. Inflation is around 6 to 7%. Savings they can give you 4%, which is less than what these card. Credit card companies are allowed to charge up to 35% a year. So even credit card debt is way better performing for them than It's top index, right? So I say that to say, no financial planners. A good financial planner will concentrate to pay down your debt. But if I'm a financial planner and I'm selling you stuff, I don't make money off of you paying off your debt. I make money when you buy the instruments that I'm selling. So as someone who has no better interest in selling you anything, taking care of your debt to me is a priority because now the money you do have works for you. You want your dollar to have a job all the time, working for you, so that when you're sleeping, the dollars are still working. The dollars don't need to rest. They can continue to work for you. Only you need to rest. And that's why having your money work for you, investing your money, making your money grow, that is the thing that we want to concentrate on. But also we got to understand the things that rob our money from growing. Besides coming on here telling you, oh, don't buy Jordans and don't buy stuff. I mean, obviously everyone has their own palette, right? So I can't tell you you should buy designer clothes, stuff like that. That's easy to tell people don't do that. I want to tell you, okay, conception, what are you doing in your life that's hurting your money flow? And that's what we're going to concentrate on.
So knowledge and awareness. And then actually application. Because you can have all of this information, but if you don't apply it, then it's wasted information. But another thing, just to piggyback about what you said about a financial planner, and that's why it's important to sit with somebody who is vested in your well-being, your financial well-being, who will take the time and will do to do financial planning with you, find out what your debt income ratios are, understanding where your money is going. Like just like how you related it back to therapy, a therapist is not allowed to tell you yes or no, right or wrong, right? But they can steer you in the direction where you ultimately have to face yourself. And I think that a good financial planner, and I know a few, right, they will make you face your situation and face the debt and begin to provide, if maybe not so much advice, but give you options of what you can do to try to begin to eliminate those debts. That's what a good financial planner should be doing, right? So just so that I put that out there because there are some good ones out there who will sit down and do a P&I, do a dime method, and these are vocabulary, like I said, I'm throwing out, and eventually we're going to get more in depth into it so that you can understand what is your debt, what does a debt look like, and how can you begin to dig yourself out of whatever situation you're in. Most of the United States is in debt. Most Americans are in debt, and they are living paycheck to paycheck, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'm more of one of those people that believe there is light, so you can get yourself out of it. So with that said, I'm going to move into our next, because I don't think we covered bonds. What exactly are bonds? Because we were talking about debt, so I thought that would be a good segue.
So bonds are debt borrowed from anything. It could be a financial institution, it could be the government, stuff like that. It's basically, a debt vehicle where they take out a loan of money and then they pay back interest on that loan of money. So traditionally, bonds are more stable than stocks, and it's protected by a debt loan out, and that's what bonds are. Most of the times, people are advised to have a combination of equity. Equity is what stock is considered, and bonds, which is considered fixed income, right? There's a steady payment back of that loan, right? So when a company sells you a stock, they can choose whether or not to give dividends or just you get value from the growth of the price of the stock. A bond is a promissory note, a promise from the bond issuer that I am going to say, I take $1,000, I'm going to give you coupons. Coupons is what's considered the payments from the bond. I'll give you semi-annual, quarterly coupons of a fixed amount of money that I'm paying you back the bond, and then it slowly pays off, the amount that they were owed plus a little bit interest on it. The interest on bonds is not usually that high, but the reason the appealing factor of bonds is that it's very secure. If a company, let's talk about bad things. If a company goes out of business, is going out of business, say for instance, Blockbuster a couple of years ago, Blockbuster went out of business. And now, when Blockbuster is going out of business, it's obligated to pay its bond people first, then the people who hold their stock. So bonds are more secure. Bonds are, you know, offer that, you know, it gives you a payment, a set payment that you know you're going to get, and it's the security of it. Bonds don't necessarily grow in value, but it gives you that payment back.
And so a lot of bonds are issued from government, but corporations can also issue as well. So with that said, then we're going to go into EFTs and what they are.
EFTs, exchange traded funds, right? So with EFTs, it's just like these funds follow different exchanges. It could be the New York Stock Exchange, it could be the Canadian Stock Exchange, it could be an exchange for a particular product, it could be, you know, stock exchange for like a commodity, corn, you know, pork, wheat. So these funds are tied to a particular exchange in the stock market. And like we was talking about with mutual funds, exchange traded funds are just the portfolio of investments in that fund is tied to a particular exchange. It could be, like I said, New York Stock Exchange. It could be an exchange for a region. It could be exchange for a particular product. And the appeal of the exchange fund is it's less cost for that exchange versus the mutual fund, right? And I'm going to sound repetitive, but cost is what, you know, the cost of carrying money, the cost of investing, the cost of having debt. Those are the kind of things we need to consider. The exchange fund is very appealing because, you know, how an exchange is doing is how that fund is, you know, invested in data and how it's allocated. But, you know, the growth of exchange fund versus mutual funds, I think they're pretty similar. Sometimes mutual funds will outperform, sometimes mutual funds will not outperform. But the cost, to me, at the end of the day, is what's the relevant factor. Exchange funds have way less cost.
It's not carrying as much of the fees as the mutual funds are being managed by a company that's actually extracting the money that you're making. So that's where I think a lot of people are probably more prone in that direction with the EFTs.
Yeah. And another thing is, so the reason why some people might go with mutual funds more than exchange fund, right? Because the exchange is tied to a particular exchange, so it's usually more geared towards one particular, you know, kind of way of investing. Where mutual funds can see what the market is doing and can pivot, right? And that's why you pay the fancy millionaire managers the money that they are, because they can change their investment strategy mid-course, whether it be that year, whether it be, you know, a couple 6 months of kind of change, where it's just like, okay, an exchange might suffer a hit, and it takes a while for it to readjust, which is a mutual fund is actively being changed so that it can kind of see where the market is going. Like I said, I'm more of a fan of exchange traded funds than mutual funds because of the cost. However, there are mutual funds that perform really well. It's up to your investment.
Right. So always, as again, we pivot and we always say, speak to a licensed financial professional that can actually provide this information and gear you or steer you in the direction that is best suited for you, because every person's situation is different, right? So a good financial planner will cater whatever services based on your present situation and not, you know, a general thing, and not just throwing general things at you. So we talked a lot about investment types. We mentioned stocks, mutual funds, bonds, things of that nature. So what does a person consider when investing? Like when, in terms of goal, time, strategy, things of that nature?
That's a good question. Another thing we have to consider is our timetable of what we're trying to accomplish. Sabrina has children, I don't have children, right? So my investment strategy will possibly be different, right? Because I'm more investing, okay, you know what? I'm thinking of how am I going to live my best life, right? Because I don't necessarily have to leave funds behind for a child, so I may do things where it's just like I'm taking more risks into doing this, because to me it's just like, you know, I invest rigorously, I'm trying to make my money grow, but the responsibility is for me and my spouse versus having to leave, you know, money behind for children and stuff like that. So that's something to consider. Another thing also to consider is how close you are to retirement. You may say, you know what, I'm going to work up until 72. So then you may have a longer investment window. You may be somewhere and you're just like, you know what, I'm not trying to work that long. I'm trying to retire at 55, 59 and a half. 59 and a half is traditionally considered like the earliest age for retirement to access a lot of these retirement funds. But once you hit 59 and a half, and that's it used to be 65 used to be considered the general successful retirement number because of actually the insurance. Now it's 67, so they kind of pushed that back. But 59 and a half is like the earliest where you can access some of these retirement accounts. 401k, where it's just like, okay, that's the earliest you can. Some of you think that early penalty for you not withdrawing. And that's another reason why there's certain restraints to 401ks and other retirement vehicles where you can't necessarily touch that money. You can take out loans against it and stuff like that, but you can't touch that money and do what you want with it up until a certain age. So that's why I also say it's nice. Do the 401ks at work and make sure you're matching as high as you can, because so the companies give you money, right? So the companies give you money, they get tax benefits for feeding into your 401k. You get benefits because there's more money for your money to grow to do that. But the thing to consider is, when do I want to retire? Do I have kids that I need to fund for past a certain age? Do I have certain things that I'm looking to purchase sooner than later? Do you invest with your mind that, you know what, I'm going to try to buy a house? Invest that maybe I want to get a rental property. So those are the things you need to consider. And of course, my broken record is the fees. How much is this investment costing me? How much of the fees are tied to this investment? I'm not promoting any of those things, but a lot of reasons why the Robin Hoods, the Allies, these brokerages where you can do it yourself is, like, it's now giving the average person, right? Because back in the 80s, in the 70s, even the 90s, you had to sit down with a financial planner. It cost money to do these things, and there was no other way access to the money. But now we have, the brokerages, the Robin Hoods, the Fidelity, Charles Schwab, any brokerage you can open up yourself, you can start investing on your own. It still takes some levels of expertise to really be comfortable, but I say this, it's just like, it's nowadays, the average person can open up an account with no money. You could just fund your account for $50. And then even now versus before, back in the day, they used to have commissions on every trade. Sometimes it was $10 a trade, sometimes $5 a trade. Now these brokerages, a lot of them are having free trades, so there's no commission on your trade, so you can buy stocks. Usually it's like 1 or 2 purchases a day for free. I think if you do more than 2 purchases in a day, they consider you a day trader or active, and then they might start charging fees for that. But those are the things to consider, right? Because any time you invest, you got to consider the timeline of what you're looking to do. If you have, the level of responsibilities that you have, right? If you have a couple of kids you need to tend for, you have to be a little more safe. A lot of times it's like, okay, you have kids, you gotta, leave her,
Insurance?
no, just leave, inheritance behind for kids, and the plan of like, okay, mixture of, bonds and equities kind of thing. Or investments where it's just like, a growth fund for a particular year. Like at work, I had invested in the 2045 growth fund. So the fund is going to mature in 2045, and then it's going to distribute all its growth to the participants. So the time of when you get to invest, what you're trying to invest for, who do you need to invest to cover, and that's when insurance comes into play, which is your arena. And then also, how much money can you effectively afford to invest, right? As much as I think investing is the future, you can't not pay your bills and not eat so that you can invest. You have to be considerable, like, what can I afford to invest, and then work on, changing that amount as you take your certain expenses, find where you can save money, and then also, the debt kind of thing. I had the conversation with myself and my wife, I was just thinking of, okay, things that I can cut. I don't even watch TV, I just stream everything. So I was paying $275 a month for cable and internet. I cut off the cable, I still have internet, and I'm paying $70. So now that's $200 a month that I'm saving. I can use that $200 to invest, I can use that to pay down debt, I freed myself up. And some people, you know, they need cable, you have kids, you gotta watch certain things, so I get it. But you gotta, like you were saying, the Starbucks thing, like, you know, some people spend, without even thinking about it, spend $30 a day sometimes, because they go to Starbucks twice. They get it free and like a muffin and a drink kind of thing. That's $30 a day, $210 a week. You know what I'm saying? That's almost $1,000 a month just in your Starbucks habit. And Starbucks just your coffee, you can eat it. And listen, I'm not here to judge you. Just like, you got to figure out part of your investing is your expenses as well. Where can I cut expenses so I have more money to invest? And those are all the things I would consider investing.
As he's saying that, I'm like watching. I mean, people can't see what, I don't think they can see the surroundings, right? They can. Oh, but I'm watching the reaction of some of the barbers as they're listening to it, which means it's falling onto good ears, because it has you thinking about, like, realistically, how much money we're spending, wasting, in a sense, right? And so that money is not producing for you, right? So now if you can start actually sitting down, right? Come up with a goal. What is your plan? What would you like to see? Like, whether it's purchasing your first home or even buying a car, right? You have, like, which I love what you said about, like, how these car companies are giving you the option for up to 6 to 7 years to finance, and you think that that's a bad deal. And if you're going to go beyond 4 to 5 years, right? You're going to spend that 6 or 7 years of paying a car note, right? If you can cut that down to 4 to 5 years, imagine, because one is compounding interest. Car companies making that money, not you, right?
And another thing, let's do the car example. They finance you a car for 7 years, knowing that you're going to get tired of that car after 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do, you're going to go back, trade that car in, get way less money than you should, and then either have to carry that debt onto a new debt. So you keep kicking that down the road kind of thing. So that's another thing you have to consider. Also, it's just like your palette for, like, wanting to be fashionable. Like, for instance, I'm not talking from a place where it's just like I always have my financial mind, like everyone else. I want to have the big fancy foreign car, and I'm just like, now I'm at the place where it's just like, okay, I have my car paid off, I paid it off for 4 years, and then now my initial appetite was like, I need something new. But it's just like, you're not reaping the benefits of that car if you paid it off and now you're going to trade it, and you're going to lose value on that trade when you start the race again. So I also tell people, if you can, hold on to your car longer, or buy cars that you're going to see yourself in for a long time. Don't buy a car because you think it is cool now, and then as soon as they change the body, you're going to want a new body. That's how they keep us in the rat race of debt. Continuing to, like, okay, you got to get a new car.
And it's a depreciating asset.
It's not even that, you can't call it an asset. The only way I can call it an asset is, I call it the depreciating need, or the depreciating necessity, right? Because you need a car to get around. But the only way your car is an asset is if you're an Uber driver, or your dad, where it's just like, you use your car, or you're a delivery, you deliver medical supplies. If your car can make you money, cool. Some people buy fancy cars and then rent them out. So like, some people have luxury cars that, the average person can't afford, but they can rent it out for them. That's when your car's an asset. If it's not doing anything of that, then it's appreciating necessity.
So we talked about what you need in terms of investing. We talked about, let's talk about the risk. Some of the risks of it. Because it has its good and its bad. So let's talk about the risk.
So the risk of investing, right? And that's where I came in and I said the emotional aspect of investing, right? Because I love to give examples of where I failed, so that, I'm speaking in case case I'm speaking and people just like, it sounds like I know everything. I also fell on my behind for certain things. For instance, I'm gonna give you an example of, the risk that it comes with investing, especially when it comes to stocks, right? So the riskiest investment you can make, they say, is investing in individual stocks, right? Because it doesn't give you any diversity. You kind of just put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. And I'll give you an example. I didn't necessarily, yes, I took a loss, and I'm going to tell you why. And the company that I took a loss in is Facebook. And you're like, Facebook is the biggest social media platform in the world. How did I take a loss from Facebook? When Facebook first came out, I invested in it at $40. The IPO at $40. And then there was speculation, stuff going on. It went down from 40 to 38, to 33, to 30. It went down to 29. And I sold it because I'm like, I'm not going to lose all my money. Facebook is now $475 a share. So all that money, I jumped out the pot to save what, $11 because I was panicking, but then now my money would have 10 times. I say that to say this: the emotional aspect of investing is that if you every day watch your stock, that one particular stock, it's going to drive you nuts. And that's why they have things like mutual funds, exchange funds, index funds, because you have to consider a long-term investment, right? You got to consider that the market's going to correct itself. Things are going to go up, things are going to go down. Nvidia is this big stock that everyone's been talking about. It was like one of the most recent companies that hit $1 trillion in value. So Nvidia, I had Nvidia stock, and it was just like, okay, they did a split recently because it was like $1,000, and they did a split to now that $1,000 stock. They issue out more issues, and now it's down to 100. So they sold at 100, 120, and this week it went up to 142, then it went down to 127, then 130. You can't ride the wave of this investing thinking that I'm gonna get rich tomorrow. You also can't consider that, like the money is gonna go up, it's gonna go up and down, but it's over an extended period of time is how you see it. The risk is when you don't diversify yourself, you put all your money in one basket and things just go. For instance, when I was in college, my number one thing I would like to do as a broke college student is when I couldn't go to the movies, we would rent videos from Blockbuster night, get some snacks, get lots of stuff like that. You couldn't have told me in the 90s that Blockbuster wasn't going to be around forever. So Netflix came around, right? And I bring up that example to say there's always going to be something that kind of can change the industry. For instance, another thing I'm dating myself is when I first came out of school, me and all of my friends had BlackBerry Messenger. All we did was BlackBerry. Now you can't find a BlackBerry really much because of the iPhone came out. So the risk of investing is thinking that your one frame of thinking, that one particular thing that you like is always going to be forever. And that's why we had things that diversifying your investments, diversifying your portfolio. It sounds fancy, but all this is saying is just like, to avoid the risk of this having too many eggs in one basket, I got to spread it out. So the risk of investing is, if you make the wrong choice or just depend too much on one thing, you particularly necessarily lose your money. Now, the only time I can say you can really truly hurt yourself investing in stocks if you invest in something what's called penny stocks. Penny stocks are very low value stocks that people always do speculation, right? And the key to some penny stocks is there's certain companies before they're known that they can't value their stock at such a high price, so it might IPO at like $1 something low kind of thing. And the only time people really lose money with penny stocks is when people who are bad apples speculate. Like for instance, Marv companies coming out, more companies coming out, and I'm creating a new software that makes you lose weight just by watching the video, right? Obviously, that's not something realistic. But then I get people who just like, oh, that's gonna be the way. I pay people to what's the name? I pay Kim Kardashian to say I use Marvin, and then I run up the number so that now my penny stock is now worth $30, $40, and then poor investors will invest all their money in there, and then the SEC comes down and says, Kim Kardashian, you don't have to use this. How could you do that stuff like that? That's false. And then now it comes out that I was just lying. Now the $40 that you invested in my stock, speculation drops down to now to a penny again, and now you lose all your money. I use that example to say, investing, you're only going to lose your money primarily is if you invest in something that's just like too isolated into one particular thing. You want to be able to invest in some bonds, some stocks, if you can, real estate, interest-producing assets, stuff like that. Investing shouldn't be just like, if you invest in one thing, it's just like, taking a chance that this one thing is going to be there forever. But it's just like, nothing is forever. Nothing is number one forever. The market changes, people's opinion changes. Just like your favorite food when you was younger might not be your favorite food now, things change. So I would say the risk of investing is not diversifying and thinking one way all the time. That's why assets that give you exposure to different things, even something called a REIT. The REIT is a real estate investing fund, right? So that is where you can invest in real estate but not be a landlord per se, right? You buy into a fund, that fund buys a whole bunch of properties, either commercial or private, and they collect rents. And then after they pay their expenses, you get distributions from it, right? That's another way to get exposure to everything without that particular risk. Yes, obviously there's no money to being a landlord if you can, but there's risk that you get tenants that won't pay, your water heater break, a hole in the roof, all of those expenses come with that particular asset. So, can you avoid risk completely? No. What you can do to avoid risk is diversifying yourself and having exposure to certain things so that when stocks are down, maybe you still have, income coming in from real estate. The bond's still paying what you expect it to do. One thing I didn't bring up this whole time is cryptocurrency. This is a new investment vehicle because it's so unknown. Even though there's people being crypto millionaires and everything, I knew a guy who on Monday was a crypto millionaire and on Friday had nothing because news came out, people come out with projects that sound good, but there's no utility for it, there's no use for it. And once people find out, for instance, another thing called Dogecoin was a big thing. I don't know if anyone remember, like 2 years ago, Dogecoin was like to the moon. Even Elon Musk did a tweet saying that Dogecoin to the moon. And it's basically a cryptocurrency that has no utility. The utility means use for it, right? So there's no use for this crypto coin. And they're producing quantities of this coin every day. So Dogecoin went up to like at its high like $1.50. And then for the last 3 years, it's been trading between 10 and 15 cents. So at the time, I know people who made a lot of money. I know people who bought Doge at like $1.50, spent $20, $30, $50,000 thinking that it was going to go up to $10 and make money. And then they lost their money because now it's been at 15 cents. So that's the risk when you kind of like invest off of just completely hype and not have an understanding of it. For those people who are not in the industry and you're not reading the stock things every day, like you mentioned earlier, invest in stuff that's safe. I wouldn't say go out and make all my investments in Walmart, but Walmart is not going to go away anytime soon. I would have exposure to something that like buys Walmart, AT&T, Tide, like different, the companies that produce these things. I would have diversity where it's just like, I have some stuff that I invest in Walmart or big retail, Amazon, stuff like that. I have something that might invest in, telecommunications. I try to invest more so in like areas than a particular individual thing. To me, makes more sense to invest in a fund that has some Walmart, has some Verizon, had some McDonald's, and for me to say that I'm gonna put all my money in McDonald's. Sure, McDonald's is not gonna go away, no way. That's what it feels. A rumor could come out that McDonald's has now been using that since the 80s, and now nobody wants to touch McDonald's. McDonald's not necessarily a food company, they're a real estate company, but that's like a deeper conversation. That's where their money really is, the real estate. You buying Big Macs and stuff like that keeps them open kind of thing, but I say that to say anything can change. So I'm sorry I've been ranting, but the biggest risk is not diversifying yourself. Like the old saying, like your mother said, can't put all your eggs in one basket, that's when you're investing.
So which is when we talk about the S&P 500, right? When you're diversifying, because I want people to get like a gist of it so that they don't think it's only one way that we're investing and we're talking about stocks, right? So if you can diversify yourself, diversify your portfolio, and where like almost like a Costco concept, right? A Costco or BJ concept. When you go into Costco and BJ, they're selling their brand, but they're also selling other people's brands as well, right? So it's diversified. So when you go into that store, you can pretty much find just about anything that you want. So you're investing in products that you're familiar with. So with the S&P 500, it almost carries like a similar concept where you're now able to purchase stocks, right? A variety of stocks. So if one stock is not doing well, then you have how many other stocks that may potentially be doing well or stabilized. What I like about index, right, in terms of even if the stock market takes a dip, certain indexes can sit with a good financial planner, they can sit and walk you through so that you're not having this roller coaster of emotions like, oh my God, the stock just fell and I've lost a whole bunch of money. When you diversify, it's almost as though your heart is not beating as fast because you know that at some point it levels off. So if it's leveling off, you're not losing, you're not gaining. But when it's doing well, when the stock market is doing well, then now your portfolio, all the things that you've invested in, now all of a sudden you're seeing a rising. But when the stock market takes a dip, you can stay at ease knowing that what your portfolio is doing is stabilizing itself. Again, I encourage that if you are interested in learning more, seek out a good financial planner who basically is well versed in it and will help you along so that you're not going through this emotional roller coaster. Like you said, money is this emotional thing, right? When you have it, it's great. When you don't, you see how quickly you go into a depression, right? Or you go states of how to make your money, make money. So that's something I feel like, even coming up from a Caribbean household, like, they always emphasize this point of, go to school, get a good degree, get a good education, and then you ultimately, because that's an investment that you make, right? We talk about it in that aspect. But going to school for some people is considered an investment because your rate of return is eventually you're going to make a good amount of money, right? So you put your time, your energy, all of those are invested resources that we're putting into it. So you think that getting a degree will ultimately reap you a greater benefit. But there are also risks to it, right? Because there's loan debt. And a lot of Americans are carrying student loan debts that are astronomical, right? And some of us are not taking the time to actually pay back that debt. Even though the interest rate on it, because we talked about interest in the beginning as well, even though the interest rate may not be the same as a credit card interest rate, student loan and mortgage rates are typically lower than your credit card interest rate. So it's very important that we understand the terminology and make it like a regular part of our vocabulary and conversation so that we understand what it is, how it can work for us, and also how it's working against us. It works against you if you're not knowledgeable, if you're not seeking the information. It works for you when you do have the information and you're investing in the right industry to help capital.
You see all the time there's like two people who are together and they're like a doctor, two doctors are together and like, wow, they make a lot of money and they're floating in debt. And it's just like they can't, they have nice stuff, but all they do is throw debt at things and they don't have a financial outlet. And then you hear stories about two teachers who retired as millionaires, and you're like, how did they achieve that versus the doctors can achieve that? It's the use of debt, it's the financial decisions, it's the emotions behind it, right? A lot of times we make financial decisions emotionally. I had to catch myself for a while. I was just like, you know what? Since I don't have kids to leave money behind, let me get a luxury car. Let me get the biggest house I can. I like jewelry. Let me get this nice chain, things of that nature. And it's cool to make those decisions, but you got to live with those decisions because all you're doing is having money come out and you're not focusing on money come in. For instance, it's just like, okay, eating out all the time, having, some people have like a smoking habit or things of that nature. You got to think of all decisions that you make, those costs are coming out. How do you balance what's going out versus what's coming in? And that's the biggest thing about investing. Lots of people just think, oh, the rich getting richer. Sometimes the rich do have assets, but sometimes they also have a certain level of discipline that us people who aren't rich don't have. Like, it's a stereotype, but sometimes they say, oh, the richest person in the, you'll see a picture, the richest person in that picture had on skips, a white t-shirt, Steve Jobs wore a black turtleneck and blue jeans all the time, nothing else and stuff like that. And you'll see someone who's this fabulous person, and they had no money, they just living off the things that they typically have. So I just think, a lot of times people think you gotta make a lot of money. You gotta spend money to make money kind of thing, but it's also, it's scale. You can start off small and grow, but you gotta be working towards growing, right? You can't, a lot of times people have that mentality. When I make more money, I'll invest. So right now I'm making enough money, so I'm not gonna invest. You gotta consider those things. Okay, when you make more money, you'll be able to invest more. But right now, I make this amount of money, I should be able to invest this amount. Don't not invest because you don't have a lot of money. Invest according to what you can invest. And also purchase what you can purchase, right? Because the other side of not being able to invest is that the debt you carry. Like, I'm going to use this example one more time. If you have a financial plan and they're able to get you 10 to 15% growth on your money, that is a damn good investment. However, the credit card companies allow to charge you 25 to 30% every year without pause. So if they was considered investing, they'd be the best investors in the world. All they do is take it. So
well, how do you reverse it? How do you make it work to your, like if you are carrying high credit cards, like multiple credit cards, and you have a high debt ratio?
I'm glad Gary said that. Two things you can do, right? Well, let me do three things real quick. Let's just say you have a lot of debt for 5 different credit cards. One's 5,000. Let's just say you have $5,000 on 5 different credit cards. $25,000. Each of the interest rates are different. One's 22%, one's 24%, one's 27%, one's 15%. If you can consolidate them all into the lowest card, have enough interest, because from a carrying standpoint, okay, you're paying less on that one card. So one interest rate shop. See what's the best rate you can. Some credit cards offer introductory zero balance transfer periods, right? So you can take your interest, transfer to a new card, and then now for 16 months, 2 years, a year, you have no interest on that debt. While you have no interest on that debt, you want to be able to try to vigorously pay it down as you can, so you have no interest on it. Another thing you can do is consolidate and take a debt loan where it's just like, okay, they're going to charge you 10% on that loan for 5 years, what, $25,000 versus you carrying the credit card charging $25,000. One, reducing your credit card debt and then taking that personal loan debt will help your credit. The reason why it will help your credit, even though it's $25,000 here versus $25,000 there, is the creditors know that you have this $25,000 loan for 5 years that it has an ending. You're going to pay it off. With them seeing you carrying $25,000 on the credit card, they don't know when you're going to pay that off. You could carry that for life. So it weighs on your credit to have revolving credit that's sitting there versus having an ending installment loan. Installment loan. Your car note is considered an installment loan because there's an end date. Your mortgage is considered an installment loan because there's an end date. So on these personal loans. So one, if you can consolidate your loans, your credit card into one card, and then see if you can get a low interest rate. Two, if you could get a card where you can transfer new balances there, and it has an introduction of no balance transfer, see if you can do that and pay off. Or if not, try to take out a personal loan so that you can pay off these credit cards, have an installment when they know, okay, it's a lower interest and it's an end date. That'll help your credit. But don't do this and then still go back to using your credit card. Like, oh, now I got more space on the credit card to do things, right? It's the emotional aspect of it. You have to realize, like, you know what? I think the number one thing I realized as an adult, and it took me into my 30s to realize this, being an adult is having access to money and being able to do things and having the discipline to not do it just because you can, right? Like, for instance, it's just like when you was younger, like, oh, I can't wait till I start working, start making money, and then soon you start making money, and then it's just like, you could buy things, and then now this debt is waiting on you, then you got all these bills, and then you one day wind up turning to your parents and realizing, when you turn to your kids and say, you got McDonald's money? The reason why you say that now is because you spent all that money on groceries, and now you want to throw away more money, and now that all comes to you. So it's sort of like, now as an adult, of course an adult can afford that McDonald's every day and stuff like that. But you spend money on groceries, take some food from home, bring it to you, and that's how you save money. You got to make certain decisions that don't seem that appealing to get to where you want to get to. Because there's no magic money just going to bring your life. You got to make decisions happen.
So it just sounds like to wrap it up so that we make sure that we hit certain key points is you have to have a goal first and foremost. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And then know your investment time. How long do you have it? Savings, when you put money into savings, you know that you have easy access. It's immediate access. But when you're putting money into something like a stock market, mutual fund, you have to be able to have time. And time, it needs to grow, right? So, and then there's like the risk involved, right? You have to be able to be patient as well, right? To know that you're not going to get immediate gratification out of investing in certain cases, right? So you need to know that time, patience is something. Patience is a virtue, as they would say when I was growing up. And then don't be afraid to test the waters in the sense of you don't have to do anything grandiose. You can start small, like how I like what you said, something as small as $50 into something, right? And also looking at, for those of us that are working for employers, looking to see what they do have in terms of 401k, their retirement plan, and knowing that that's something that's an investment. You're going to be with a company for 20 plus years. The average person thinks that they're going to be in the job for a maximum of 5 years, right? 2 to 5 years. They go in, especially right after college. They go in and they're like, okay, I'm going to go get my experience. 2 years, 2 to 5 years tops, right, to get the experience. For most people, they find themselves that they're beyond that 5 years. They turn around and they look, and it's 20 years in the company, and now they're thinking about retirement. Something like my own personal story, like when I came out of college, straight out of college, I got a city job. And I said to myself, I was going in just to get the experience. And I remember speaking to an older woman during my training. And now when I look back, like, I'm up there in age now. But when I look back, I'm like, dang, that was some pivotal information that she shared with me of being young-minded and not understanding the value of what she was giving me. I didn't take heed to it. And I remember something that she said, invest. Invest. If the company is offering a retirement plan of some sort, invest. Even if it's 3%, 1%, 2% for your salary, invest. And of course, when I was coming out of school, now when I think about it, my first paycheck was like, I don't even think you could live on the paycheck that I was making back then. But in my eyes, it was more money that I've ever seen as a coming straight out of college. At college, and I'm dating myself. Minimum wage back then was like $5.50. So coming out of school now, where they're offering you a salary of like $30,000 a year, right? You're looking at it as like this is probably the most money a 21-year-old is seeing. So when she said to invest, I didn't take that advice. I looked at it as I wanted to keep as much of the money that my paycheck was giving me. I wanted to keep as much of it as possible. And then not realizing that ultimately I'm paying back student loans, I'm paying credit card fees, I'm paying all this stuff, and I'm investing in debt. I wasn't investing in something that could potentially, now that I'm not retirement age yet, but that could have potentially helped me in my retirement. But I say that to say that it's never too late. It's never too late. I didn't take the advice in my 20s. I most certainly didn't take it in my 30s. But for those of us that are in our 40s, pushing into our 50s, it's not too late. There are strategies out there. You just need to find a good person willing to share the information with you. And then for you to actively engage yourself, right? Don't just depend on what people are telling you. There are books out there. There are podcasts out there. There's journals out there, right? That you can actually take that time and invest in learning. And which is why I keep going back and saying Barbershop Convo Series is probably the best thing that could have happened to this community. And I think the hope for it, because of the fact that you are bringing this dialogue, this conversation, right? You're giving us an open space to be able to talk to people that look like us, right? Because we didn't get this information in school. I didn't get it in school. I'm going to speak for myself. I wasn't fortunate to have financial literacy taught to me. My parents did the best that they could. I watched them work hard. My parents are like pushing 70, and they're still working because they did not, their goal was to get their kids an education and to have a house. That's the American dream, right? But they're still working for the American dream. They have nothing invested, right? So they're still at 70, they're still having to work, right? Retirement is not even in their vocabulary at this point. So I say that to say that, you know, this information that you're giving us, this platform that you're giving us an opportunity to speak on, you can potentially save somebody in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and have them start saving. Because we're outdated. Like, people are not realizing now, people are living longer and longer. So can you imagine at 70 getting up and working a 9-to-5 job still? At 70, you should be on the beach somewhere, right? You should be relaxing, not working. But if there is a possibility for you to invest at a younger age, then take it. I wish if I could go back to my younger self, I wish I could have said, this lady has some gems. You need to listen to. So, and I have a 23-year-old son, and I have an 11-year-old daughter. And this conversation now that we're starting to begin to have where now it's normal. It's a normal conversation. My daughter will be the first to tell me, she got an invest. She's invested, she has an IUL. She knows that every month money is going into her IUL and she's making money. And by the time she's ready for college, she's her own bank. She can borrow if she so chooses, and I'm not gonna tell college is not for everybody. That's a debt that you're going to have to eventually face at some point. But if she wanted to purchase her first car, that's money that she could borrow off of her IUL. If she wanted to purchase her first home, that's money that's available to her. But I'm happy now that I'm getting the information that I can now, transfer it onto her at a younger age. So now she's being set up to do better than me. Because I think that's the ultimate thing, right? You want to be number one a legacy, but you want every generation to be better than the generation that came before it. But the only way it's going to happen is if you start talking and having these conversations. And again, I want to take it back to the forum. Thank you for this platform. Thank you so much.
Yes, I echo everything that Sabrina said, and Nicole, thank you for allowing me to come here. I feel extra special coming here because, like I said, I grew up a few blocks down here. My elementary school I can walk to from here, so it's beautiful to be here and have these kind of conversations. And, you know, anyone out there listening, you know, I want to piggyback anything you're saying. I want to, you got to consider a couple of things. One thing we did, and you know, I wish I would have thought to bring it up earlier. Another thing we also have to consider is taxes.
Yes.
Taxes is another thing that robs us from growth. Paying too much taxes for certain things, realizing that, you know, there's certain ways to make money and not get taxed as much, but that's a whole other conversation. But taxes, interest rates, what you're receiving versus what you're paying, fees, what's being charged. These are all the things you have to consider. And like Sabrina said, no matter what age bracket you're in, you can continue to invest. There's still chances for your money to grow, but you got to consider certain things. Like you said, you had that advice when you was older than you wish. When I was 20 years old, I thought I was going to be a rapper. I'm the furthest thing from a rapper right now, right? But it says that when you're young, you dream, you think, I thought I was going to be like Biggie Small. That's serious, right? And I didn't come close to that. And I laugh to say that you one day can look at yourself 20 years later, like you're grown, your dreams, you know, didn't work out to how it should. However, there's always chances to live a great life. You want to invest, you want to make the decision. Like what I can say for the youth is, don't think that you gotta wait till you get this big job to start investing. Start investing now. If you can, I think the biggest thing is having the discipline to understand that, you know what, everything that you want, you don't necessarily have to get immediately. Think about how you can pay for these things. If I could give one simple advice to anyone younger, outside of just investing early, compounding interest into your friends, because when you invest in early, the interest compounds. That's how people say, like, if you invest $100 a week when you're 18, by the time you retire, you'll have $7 million. And you're like, how? Compounding interest. But another advice I could tell people is like, look, if you can't afford to buy something with your paycheck and then not suffer from buying it, put it off. Wait till you can buy something. There's a rule of thumb. If you can't buy anything that you want twice, then you can't afford it. Obviously, a lot of people can't buy a house twice or a car twice. Those things are extreme. But I'm just like, if buying those pair of jeans that cost $750, you know, if that's going to cause a deficit, you don't need those kind of jeans. Trust me, a lot of times we spend money to impress people or to look a certain way. We're not thinking about our future, right? And I'm happy to say I'm not 100% where I want to be financially, but I have plans. I work on habits and the emotion of money. I can buy any toy, sneaker, etc. things that I want, even for myself. Every year I fight because like I said, I like jewelry. I want to get myself a Rolex. I can't afford a Rolex, but like, what value is it bringing to me? I'm not making enough passive income to justify that Rolex. So I say, make those kind of decisions. Rich people tell their kids, you want something? Well, the ones that's not spoiling their kids. If you want something, make an investment that's going to pay for the thing that you want. That's the kind of way we got to think versus just buying stuff from credit cards. And some people act like credit card is an extra form of income for them because it allows them to buy things right now, but it's just like that getting carried. Like I said, it's a freeloader. Credit card is a freeloader. Get rid of the freeloaders in your life. Thank you for letting me have this conversation.
I love it. So with that said, I thank you for participating. Thank you for coming out and being a panelist.
I would love to be a panelist again. So that's an open re-invite.
Yes.
When you feel like it adds value to the conversation, please invite me back.
Yes. I love it. I love the fact that we have this platform where we can actually come together and brainstorm and talk about it. And you know, Pete, we're not perfect. Like, by no means am I like where I want to be in my life at this stage, but I know that there's still hope, and that's why I seek the knowledge. I go out and get the education. I talk to people because there's a lot. At my age, I still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn. So I think that the best student, and when you talk about the word discipline, I used to think discipline was a bad word because discipline meant that you had to force yourself into becoming something, right? It has to be repetitive. But one day I was reading some place where the word discipline, where it's the root word of it is disciple, right? It's a student. We are forever students in a world where we're learning. So just that mind shift where I now took the word, instead of looking at it in such a negative connotation, and I now see it in a way where I'm a student of life. I'm a student of financial literacy. I'm a student of health and wellness. I'm an educator, but I'm still a student. I go to school every day and I learn from my students every single day. I'm being taught something because I'm delving at this stage in my life. I'm delving into something that I've never done before with a population of kids that I've never been exposed to before. But every day I come out learning something. They're teaching me. So if you go through life where you are a student of life, it will open doors to you. It will open doors that you never thought possible. And then Nicole took an opportunity, and now you're becoming a student in terms of what it is that you're doing here, not realizing, well, I don't know if you realize that the impact. That's why when she came out with it, I was so adamant about wanting to be part of it because I knew that it was something that I was learning, but it wasn't necessarily my area of expertise, and it wasn't something that, not to say that I wasn't comfortable with it, but I wanted to learn and I wanted to grow. And I thank you for giving me that opportunity and that platform to be able to come here and learn and grow and seek more knowledge. This makes me, like when I knew I was going to be on the panel, right? I don't know if you remember, but years ago I said we were going to work together. We were going to work together. And, the opportunity was just not there back then, but God would have it be where I reached out to him and I said, this is what this woman is doing for the community, and I'm excited about it. I mean, I grew up 15 minutes away from here, so, but I was excited about what your vision, your foresight. And so I wanted to be part of it because I feel like this is a conversation that's needed. And it's not just the financial literacy. For those of you tuning in for this session, that's what you're catching, but you've had some incredible topics in the past. And I'm just asking God to continue for it to flourish and to grow. And so if there are people out there that are interested in the topic, or they even want to participate, I love the fact that you just threw yourself out there and say, like, you're part of it.
But I can be a reoccurring guest.
Right, so I'm like, I guess, not pleading, but I'm saying, if there are people out there interested in this and they want to be part of this dialogue, this conversation, reach out to Nicole. I'm sure, I don't know if you're going to put your contact information, right, and just come out and support, because as a community, we've come a long way, but that we still need to be further. When we think about like the African American community, we're still technically lagging financially behind other ethnic groups, right? And there's still more work to be done. The schools are not necessarily providing the education the way that they ought to be, but I feel like if we continue the conversation, you can actually begin to change people's mindsets and mind frames about understanding what spending is, what debt is, what a saving is. The different areas in which you can actually allocate funds so that you can create, I like to call them, I want my money to make babies, right? We're making babies in other ways that we're not necessarily being able to afford them. But if you can make your money make babies, I think that to me, will set us up, for a better future and better community as a whole. Make the community stronger. Come back and invest in your community. And I'm grateful that you came back. You came back and you're talking about your experience as a financial planner, right? You're talking about like it wasn't always perfect. We've made mistakes along the way, but we're learning. And I think that to me is like is the gateway coming back.
Especially like you said, being from this community, having the exposure, growing up in this area, I think not like I was privileged to something that was kind of unique. I was fortunate enough to go off to college, get my bachelor's in finance, my master's in finance, and continue to grow. However, I still know these conversations are critical. These conversations are critical, especially if we can tap into the youth. And another thing is we have the internet. Another dating myself was when I was younger, you had the encyclopedia that was dated, and you had to do all your information for, and then maybe 2-3 years later you might get an updated encyclopedia. Now, anything that I told you today, you could go Google it and kind of understand more. You could go to YouTube University and kind of research these kind of things. So, like I love how you said discipline of being a student. Everything that I told you, I'm still learning new things. And like I said, I'm still learning the emotion of dealing with money. I was telling my wife, I was holding on to so much cash because I didn't feel like I knew when cash was coming in. But I was throwing away so much cash for fees and expenses. So sort of like someone who's making way less money than me, they're not carrying debt. They have more freedom than I do. Money is a tool. You want to make sure that tool provides you with choices and not just buy things that are shiny that you like. You want money to be able to give you the freedom to travel where you want to be, to live where you want to live, to not have to work anymore. Like you said, money's baby, and I like to say, money has to have a job. I should be the only one in my house that can sit and relax. The money has to work 24/7 while I sleep. The money has to work.
Yes. Great takeaway.
Great takeaway.
Great takeaway. Thank you, Marvin. I think this was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was such a privilege for me to sit next
It
to
was a
you.
privilege to have this conversation.
Yes, yes. So this is great. So I don't know what the next portion is going to be for the following. Okay. So, but tune in. Tune in. Definitely like share the video, share the information, and we'll see you guys next month with a new topic.
Thank you guys. Have a good
Yeah.
one.
Are we still on?
Now the computer wants to act slow.